Well, good morning. This is Mike Saville. I'm a candidate for the Idaho Legislature District 28A. I'm running against Rick Cheatham, who's the incumbent, and also there's another challenger, Mr. Lamborn. In less than 24 hours, the polls are going to open. And it's very important to vote in this primary because whoever wins, Mr. Cheatham or Mr. Lamborn or me, will be the legislator that will take office in January in Boise to represent 55,000 constituents between Power County, Bannock County, and Franklin County. It's a lot of real estate. And I know I've been traveling across the huge, in my opinion. I always say it's 200 miles, but other people say it's less. But from American Falls all the way down to Franklin, next to the Utah border. So what have I been doing? And this is kind of a recap, and this is the last day I'll be knocking on doors in my final community of Chubbuck. But so far I've been knocking on doors in Rockland, American Falls, Fort Hall, Pocatello, Downey, Swan Lake, Dayton, Clinton, Weston, Osborne, Preston, and Franklin. Over 2,000 of these brochures that you might have seen on your doorstep or on your doorknob, and also on the two QR codes. The top one is my website, and the bottom one is the incumbent's YouTube channel. Well, last winter, and when I ran for the first time, when the state senator said to me, he said, you need to know how your opponent votes. And I says, well, how do you do that? And he says, well, you'll figure it out. Yeah, I did. And what I did was I set up an iPad and an iPhone in one room. That was the House of Representatives. And then one iPad and another iPhone in another room. And I recorded over 200 videos of Idaho in session. Thanks. Oh, and by the way, I was able to do all this because I got Skylink. I went from 13 megabytes per second to a zillion megabytes per second with thousands and thousands and billions or whatever there is in Skylink in the sky. And what a difference that made. So I recorded the Idaho in session plus the committees. And then I took the time to upload that, and I guess I spent 1,200 hours this winter. Now mind you, I got my 10,000 steps, or maybe I'm exaggerating, between that starting at 8 o'clock in the morning every day that the Idaho was in session, and then when they finished up over the 94 days. And by the way, Utah has a 45-day legislative session. I was a Republican voting district chairman helping Republicans get elected in South Jordan, in Utah, and I knocked on doors. I did that for 5 years. I went to a come meet the neighbors meeting after we moved from Los Angeles to South Jordan. And I said, well, yeah, great. Well, it was a political meeting, and I got elected to the voting district chairman of the Republican Party in South Jordan, 35-20, I think it was. And I think they recognized that I would do the work. And I did. I knocked on doors, I passed out flyers, I called everybody, and a city councilman from Riverton came up to me and says, hey, would you mind helping me run against the president pro tem, or the pro tem, I should say, the pro tem of the Utah Senate? And I said, yeah, sure. Well, by golly, with 12 of us, we beat that president, or that pro tem senator, the senator pro tem, in the Utah legislature. Boy, did that create a stir. It really did. And by the way, the state senators in Utah are 4 years, and the representatives are 2. So why is it Idaho is 2 and 2? And why is it that Utah can get their $33 billion budget done in 45 days, and yet Idaho has 94 days with a $13 billion budget, and it costs taxpayers $221 a day for every legislator, 105 of them, if they're out of 50 miles from Boise. They're paid that 94 days. Well, I know why. Because of these unnecessary bills that come in from Texas, like the abortion bill, or the ban the book bill, the $250 bounty, library bounty law. So anyway, I'll get into that later. But if you happen to see this, please use your smartphone. I think you'll find it very interesting, because what they say on these cards, these $5 cards, and here the $5, what they say is different than what is different in the legislature, what they say in the committees, versus what are on these $5 cards. And like this one is paid for by Defend and Protect Idaho. and actually, I got this card. This is promoting Mr. Cheatham, the incumbent, and by golly, they got me in there, and they sent it to my address. Well, you think I'm going to vote for Mr. Cheatham? And the thing is that they got a picture of me. Now, Rochelle is a registered Democrat, and so we go to the church gala in Boise, and we've been doing it for years. And so we're kind of a split home, but we both agree on a lot of things. Look at that. My background is a recent Democrat who changed party affiliation, and you betcha, because I believe that country is more important over a political party. So anyway, yeah, firemen don't like me, the police don't like me, Governor Little doesn't like me, and the NRA doesn't like me. Now I want to point out this picture here. This picture was actually lifted off of somewhere, it was one of those, cameras that you hit and it sent it through the internet. Evidently they intercepted in the internet or somewhere, or maybe, yeah. And on the side of me next to the pin is Rochelle. I got my arm around Rochelle, and that was taken at the Frank Church Gala, and I thought a lot about Frank Church, because I actually saw him at the Pocatello airport when he brought back a prisoner of war from Vietnam, and it was at the airport. Gave a great speech. Never met the man personally, but I remember his speech. It was a pretty windy day that day, and so I like Frank Church. I like I went down the Middle Fork of the Salmon River here a few years ago, and what a tremendous experience that was. I won an auction for $1,000. It was 6 days and 7 nights, or 7 nights and 6 days, 6 nights and 7 days. Yeah, that's it. And a wonderful experience, and put that on your bucket list, because really it's a tremendous experience having that wilderness area in the middle of our state to enjoy. And it's limited, of course. They only allow about 3,500 people to go down that every year. But put it on your bucket list this summer if you can get in. And I went with the ARTA group, and they do this. And college kids, come here every summer to have fun and make some money by rowing and keeping us safe, and meals and everything were included. Okay, so that's the story here. And here again, it was sent here. And then I got this one from, and by the way, this was paid for by Defend and Protect Idaho. I think I always said that. Here's one that was also, this is Defend and Protect Idaho. This is my opponent, not opponent, but fellow challenger, James Lamborn, and they sent it to my my post office box, as did Mr. Cheatham. He sent it to the Saville family You know, I think they've got so much money. You know, these are paid for by dark money groups, corporations, lobbies, PACs. They must have so much money, they don't keep track of who's running against who. And the other thing is, and the last one I'll show you, is I got a message from my neighbor, Senator Guthrie. And it was addressed to me, okay, because I'm a registered Republican at my address. Had a picture of everybody, you know, vote for all the incumbents. You know, these challengers like Mike Saville. I don't know, he's just not it, you know. And by the way, Mr. Cheatham was not endorsed by the Farm Bureau, but yeah, it's signed by Jim Guthrie, Senator Jim Guthrie, and he doesn't even have anybody running against him. And it was also paid for by Defend and Protect Idaho, a PAC. And wow, all this PAC money. And I looked at Rick Cheatham's report of how much money he's received from these various PACs. $20,000 $20,000 to keep his seat. $20,000 from corporate lobbies and PACs, like Farm Bureau Federation, for example, that gives $215,000 every year to 100 and last time in 2022 it was to about 170 Republican candidates, and mainly incumbents. Okay, so that's covered that. And by the way, what I've learned since 2016, when Senator Nye asked me to run against Mr. Guthrie, I learned that that running for office is a marathon and not a sprint. In other words, you have to stay in there. Don't give up with one run. I mean, that's meant to discourage you. Even when they bring the Harlem Globetrotters to play on election day at Highland High School and pay $20,000 to keep me off a $1,000 billboard. So I had some of the positive things. I've had 3 forums, Bannock County and Power County and Franklin County. Met a lot of people, were asked questions. It was some of it, and one of them was streamed on YouTube down in Franklin County. What an experience. And I had 2 radio interviews on KID and KACH. KID with Jocelyn Thomas. She's a great gal. She's a broadcaster. And, I worked for Armed Forces Television in Germany for 28 months out of my 36-month tour. And I learned a lot about, the power of media and radio and TV, especially when it comes to politics. And then also I met, how do I say it? Bob Hubbard. Bob Hubbard? Yeah. Anyway, we met down at KACH. I always get that right. For some reason, I have his last name. But anyway, he interviewed me, and then also both of them aired 10 minutes or so of who I am at no charge, which is super. I had 3 newspaper articles, the Journal and the Citizen and the Power County Press. And I think that's great as far as who we are, the candidates are. As candidates, we don't get any money. We have to, what I'm saying, we don't get any money like $20,000 from corporate lobbies and PACs. So I had 15 radio spots. And these are being played. I actually saved up enough money and through the contributions, enough money to buy 15 radio spots, 15 seconds on KID in Idaho Falls, news radio, and also KACH. So you'll hear them. They're not very long, but they do say this. And after each message, I'm Mike Saville, and I approve this message. And that's my only part of those ads. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Okay, moving right along. Number 1 was 8-year term limits was repealed in 2002. The reason given by the legislature was there was very few people in the rural legislative districts who run for the legislature. Poppycock. I'm Mike Saville, and I approve this message. Do you know Idaho is one of 2 states that do not compel elected officials to disclose their assets while in public office, like Congress? The other state is Michigan. I'm Mike Saville, and I approve this message. Well, you get the idea. Did you know Idaho seems to pass the same laws that originate in Texas? As soon as the 6-week abortion bill passed in Texas in December, Idaho passed the same law in January, or about. Do you know that 1% of the population in the United States are transgender? 18,000 in Idaho. The law passed targeting transgenders from reimbursement for gender-affirming medicine for 500 state employees is cruel. Mike Saville believes life is precious. His first child was stillborn for 7 months. At 7 months, he also believes the life of a mother is precious. Restricting the reproductive rights of women is wrong. Did you know that 22% of the OB/GYN doctors have left Idaho as a result of Idaho's abortion laws because they are afraid of losing their license to practice? Mike Saville was raised in a military family, served 6 years in the Air Force, 32 years at IBM, 13 years at Thrivent. Both companies were recognized as one of the 135 most ethical companies in the world. Do you know there are 250,000 eligible voters who are not registered to vote? Democracy is not a spectator sport. Go to voteidaho.gov and register online today. Did you know Idaho's House Speaker said voting should be hard? A law was passed that makes voting very hard for seniors and students. Democracy depends on everyone voting. Mike Saville attended public schools in 3 states and a foreign country as a military dependent. That experience taught Mike school funding makes a difference. Idaho state funding is $8,100. Wyoming is $19,000 per child. Rural school districts forced into 4-day school weeks is okay if the child lives on a farm, not okay if a child has a single mom. The 250 library bounty law is from outside Idaho that could close rural libraries. 28 librarians testified against the bill in the Senate State Affairs Committee, but the committee voted to recommend passage. Do you know Idaho's legislature is 45 days? Idaho's legislative session is 94 days at $221 a day for each of the legislators. $10,000 a day. Idaho legislative session is too long. Do you know that Idaho is one of 14 states that do not disclose sales prices of homes that can help homeowners compare their home to others for taxes and value? The public should be allowed to see sales prices without going to a realtor. Getting to the end, number 14, did you know that corporate lobbies PACs funneled $64 million to 14 Idaho candidates in 2022? A 16-year representative received $150,000 from 224 donors and had no challenger. Idaho needs election finance reform. And finally, Mike Saville was abused by a Boy Scout leader when he was 13 years old. It took a long time to trust adults that took away his innocence. Idaho needs to reject laws that prevent a child from telling doctors they have been abused. I'm Mike Saville, and I approve these messages. So, that's playing now until, I guess, tomorrow until the end. Beautiful view, isn't it? This is where I grew up. This is Pocatello. You can see, I think you can see the LDS temple, and then And this is, I grew up here. I used to ride my motorcycles where these houses are right now, you know, back in the 60s and 70s. Okay, I'd like to, you know, my opponent received 20 grand, $20,000. Wow. I want to thank, you know, I don't get that. I get $50 and $25 and $100 checks from voters and my friends. And I really appreciate that. Drove 3,000 miles putting up those brochures. You might have had one. I couldn't get to everything, but with my secret weapon here, this is my secret weapon, and you'll notice right here a little black thing. That's an electric assist. I'm 80 years old, and what I get the most. And by the way, I've lost 8 pounds on this last month with the, you know, just doing all this activity. With all, you know, going riding this bicycle in all the communities I mentioned earlier in Legislative 28. So by golly, this is a good thing. I'll be riding a lot. And if you can look, you know, I've kind of thinned out a little bit here. wow, you know, being 80, you see a lot of guys that have their rear ends moved to their chest kind of deal. And I saw a video that says, use it or lose it. A fellow that's 87 years old in San Francisco, this was on PBS, he did the triathlon, you know, from Alcatraz, swam 1.5 miles from Alcatraz into San Francisco. And then he got on a bike and rode 16 miles, and then he ran 6 miles, 87 years old. And it's phenomenal. And I learned a lot in that process. So move, use it or lose it. And I believe in that. So, summary, the abortion bill, the library bill, the transgender bills, all these things came from Texas or Florida or through the ALEC organization, the Koch guy, Charles Koch, and his organization. He spends $1 billion every election. $1 billion. He's the second or third richest man in America. But he's got this ideology. Privatize everything. He's an oligarch. And any billionaire, and there's about 875 of them, including one in Idaho, any billionaire that dabbles in politics is an oligarch. And they want to privatize everything. You know, government is poor. You know, we want to anti-government. We got 21 hate and anti-government groups in Idaho, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center that I contribute to. And by the way, I contribute to PBS. And I listen and I say on in the mornings, Alexa, news, and I get PBS, NPR, I should say, NPR, and I listen to it. I don't listen to this anti-United States government premier network and Salem Town Hall baloney and Fox, you know, Hannity and those guys, and Beck and those guys. I get my news a different way, and I like Tom Hartman a lot. So what I've learned, well, it's not easy. And by the way, there's 270 candidates running in this primary, and they're all good people. They really are. I mean, their heart's into it. The differences, of course, is their ideology, and I don't necessarily agree. And I don't agree with Mr. Cheatham, and I don't agree with Mr. Lamborn. So you guys decide. Tomorrow is election day. You're going to determine who goes into the legislature, starting January of 2025, and also through 2026 for 2 years. I'd appreciate your vote, and if if you like everything on that card, on my card, well, I dropped it over here, on my card, if you like everything you see on my website, tell everybody, because I don't have $20,000. Make it a great day. Please vote tomorrow, less than 24 hours off, because there's a lot at stake here. And by the way, if you're an unaffiliated voter, there's 275,000 in Idaho. If you're unaffiliated registered voter, you can in fact go to the polls and request a Republican ballot and vote. Democrats, nope, can't do it. Green Party, nope. Green Party can't. Pink Party, Yellow Party, Gray Party. No, you can't. But if you are one of the 275,000 unaffiliated voters, you can. Okay, that's my spiel. I'm going to upload this thing with my Skylink, and it's going to be a beautiful day. I don't know about tomorrow, but from this view, and especially the view of where I grew up, and of course it's changed quite a bit. You know, when I grew up, when I was born, there was 500,000 people in Idaho, and today 2 million. And that's great. That's just the way it is. Just normal growth of the United States of America. People are moving around, and they like Idaho, and so do I. And that's why I built a house in McCammon back in starting in 2007, because I wanted to come back after IBM, Thrivent, gone away 30 years. So it's a great place. Idaho is a great place. Let's make it better, but we do have some problems to solve. And I think if I get in the legislature, I can help solve those problems.